Hey, Anna,
Hey, Mike.
Billy is looking fabulous, and you know why?
Tell me, he always looks fabulous, though.
Well, but he's looking extra fabulous, and I think it's because of, well, I know it's because of the Powerball collagen he's been taking. His coat is really shiny, and his skin is really sort of supple. He's just looking like a supermodel.
Oh, that's great. Well, the supermodel thing's funny because people think of collagen as a beauty product, really. It's
Yeah.
so marketed as such at a human level. When in fact, the interesting thing about collagen is it's so multifaceted,
Mm.
because it's a structural protein, that sadly depletes with age. By adding it into your diet, you're also helping the digestive system and
Yeah.
the
Okay. So
immune
you mentioned
system.
that. You've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
So it's good for his digestion too, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is because it helps the structure of the gut wall. And it's all about keeping the structure of the gut wall because there's a condition called leaky gut, and you don't want your dog to be having that. So,
I've had
collagen
that after a bad curry. You do not want that.
definitely don't want one of those. But yeah, so it's not only skin and coat, but it really helps that. But of course, it also helps joints as
Mm.
well as the gut lining, and also guess what with cuts and grazes. You know how when the wound starts to kind of mesh together,
Mm.
when you've
Yeah.
cut yourself. Well, that is the collagen in the body making that happen because it is a structural protein. So it helps on so many levels. It's certainly not just for the skin and coat.
All
Although,
right.
having said that, Mike, I love the So Body Co, the parent firm. Their collagen that I'm taking myself as a human, that has made all the difference to my hair. I have notably got thicker hair than I had before taking it. There you go.
But the other thing is, it's not just for us; it's for a Dog's Life listeners as well.
It is for a Dog's Life listeners, so both human and pooch. What's the discount code, Mike, for the portable?
A Dog's Life 10. That's ADOGSLIFE 10.
So just go to pourable.co.uk and the discount code is a dog's life 10. Hey, Mr. Biggs, you know how you're not insured because when I got you, you had a pre existing condition. Well, it's an interesting debate to insure or not to insure, but we're going to explore this in two special editions. The first of which is today, because we're jumping on Zoom to talk to Andy Pearce, who is the managing director with decades of experience in dedicated pet insurance, and he's joined a firm called Pet Cover. I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to A Dog's Life. Andy, welcome to A Dog's Life.
Oh, pleasure. Great to be here.
Oh, well, it's so exciting because I learnt about pet cover insurance at Crufts. So I'm really chuffed that we're having this chat today. Because is that right? Did you launch around March this year in the UK?
Yes, we did. We are an Australian company. Our origins are in Australia. And we believe the UK is a very interesting market from a pet loving nation. So for us, it was a logical step to come into the UK. So yeah, we've been around for actually a little over a year because we went into equestrian insurance originally, but then we expanded into cat and dog and exotic animals.
Gosh, yes. So you're covering everything, really. Well, I think you've done the right thing. The UK is a nation of animals, after animal lovers, I should say. After all, I wish we were just a nation of animals, actually. I think the world would be a better place, Andy, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I think you would find more harmony. Let's put it that way. Uh,
Yeah. So comparing the UK then to Australia, I mean, it's a very different climate. We've only got one poisonous snake in the UK, and thankfully poisonous spiders and the like. So, I mean, what I'm saying is, do you think the UK offers less insurance claims than in Australia because of the regional differences?
so I suppose I ought to give you a little bit of background. I used to run Pet Plan UK,
Oh,
so
did you? Did
I did.
you? Oh
Yep.
my gosh, Pet Plan. Oh, I love Pet Plan.
Yeah. So all the internal operations and everything else I used to run. So I've got a lot of experience around the UK versus Australia. And it's a really interesting question, which I get asked a lot. And I can tell you that the variation in terms of claiming is very, very similar across the two countries. Is actually also very similar to New Zealand. But there are differences, and they are subtle, and they are things that mean that you need to take more care. So I will give you some examples. The list is quite long, but if you imagine Australia has plenty of space in terms of housing and everything else, and actually has plenty of space for animals to run and roam, that may not be the case in the UK. So when you actually buy your pet and or look to get a pet, you need to be thinking about your home environment, what you have available to actually exercise the pet and make sure that you're doing the right thing by them. So obesity in animals in the UK is actually slightly higher than it would be in Australia. And part of that is the environment that we find ourselves in. If I move on from that, that's one of the areas that are different.
Yeah, I can relate to that. What about feeding though as well, Andy? Sorry, it's interesting. Am I right in thinking that in Australia people are more likely to feed a raw diet than ultra processed kibble?
Yeah, they do. I'm not an expert on the which is the right product, but what I can say to you is they feed them a lot more raw. And they also allow them to travel around more freely, so they're less inclined to be in the house, more outside. So they're more free to get out and about. That produces its own risk, but less so than in the UK. So yes is the answer to your question, but I wouldn't say it was marked. No more than probably a 10 to 15% variation, but it's definitely one of the reasons. I wanted to walk on to accidents, and frequency of accidents is another area that's different between the UK and Australia. A lot more cars on the road and a lot more smaller streets. So the accident frequency is slightly higher. So that's one thing that's different between the UK and Australia. The premises and where we live is another one. And then the final thing is treatment regimes, and I would say in that space, the UK is slightly more advanced, although Australia is very close. So you get a lot more sophisticated equipment in the UK as opposed to Australia. So that in itself will drive up costs. So those are some of the reasons. There are many more, but a golden retriever is the same as a golden retriever in Australia. They're looked after equally as well. They might get more ticks in Australia than we do in the UK, although with the hot climate in the UK at the moment, that's going to be interesting to watch. But in essence, we are pretty much the same when it comes to looking after and loving our pets.
No, that's good to hear. I mean, because it is practically mandatory now, really, to insure, isn't it, Andy? I'm staggered, I have to say, by the rise in vet bills. I've been living as a grown-up, on my own with my dogs now for over 20 years. And in that time, certainly 20 years ago, I certainly was earning a lot more money than I'm earning now. But vet bills have gone up, I would say. It's my own personal little calculation on an emergency surgery comparison that I had to deal with my bull terrier 18 months ago. They've gone up 8 times. And so there is a massive need for insurance, right?
I think if you can get insurance, you should be getting insurance. It's a false economy to think that you can put the money in the bank and pay off any type of claim or any kind of treatment that your pet has. For me, it's a given. Vet fee inflation, it's one hard one to say, that vet fee inflation is growing at around, depending on who you talk to, between 7 and 11% on an average, let alone the current inflationary pressures they face. So what you've got is, and I would say this not to defend any vets out there, but it's true. You've seen a lot more technology advancements in terms of treatment regimes and how we look after our pets and how we can fix our pets if they have any issues. So that has definitely dramatically improved. And there's a lot more exploratory procedures going on today that would never have existed 10 years ago. So you've definitely got an advancement in that. Plus, you've got to think about the ongoing costs for a vet and where they're situated. So it's for me is if you don't have insurance, then you're looking for trouble. I would tell you that on average, in a pet's lifetime, your frequency is around about 30%, which means that every animal is likely to need to make or visit vets at least once every 3 years when they're young. As they get older, that moves to 50%, one in every 2 years. And as they get over the age of 8, it is likely that you will be visiting the vet every year without fail, depending on the breed and everything else. So
yeah, and depending on your care and your
yes,
knowledge,
exactly,
I think as an individual owner,
exactly.
Yes. Yeah, no, so well, that's interesting then. So so one of my dogs, Mr. Binks, he's a rehomed English toy terrier, and I took him on actually not knowing that he only had one hip. And he has a degenerative condition called Legg-Calvé-Perthes disease, which you all know is a bone degeneration, and it affects the hip joints. So, and it was it's a long story, but we're over it now. But I just thought, gosh, there's something I don't know about this dog when he arrived, and I believed what the breeder rehoming him had told me, that he was overwalked as a puppy, and that's why he carried his leg. Anyway, so when the vet told me, he only had one hip, I nearly passed out. But anyway, luckily I was very close to an amazing animal physiotherapist called Sherry Scott of TCAP. She's an MBE. She really founded animal physiotherapy. She's an amazing woman. And the vet said to me, you better take him back before you get attached to him, because you're not going to be able to insure him, and he'll need his other hip doing, and that's going to cost at least £2,000 and all the rest of it. However, anyway, we've never removed his other hip because he hasn't needed it, because of good care, a lot of physiotherapy, a lot of acupuncture, the good anti-inflammatory diet that I feed, because I'm a great believer in feeding a raw diet. And as it goes, touching wood here, I'm telling you, he hasn't really needed to go to the vet at all, apart from one teeth clean in this time. He's now 10, and I've had him 8 years. However, I can't insure him. So what's your view on situations like that? He needed a forever home, right?
Yep.
I was happy to take him on. He's a grand little man. He's come on so much. But, we're in a crisis now where rescue centres are brimful. There will be dogs in those rescue centres that have got a pre-existing condition, and of course that's going to be prohibitory, isn't it, for people to take them on with the thing, oh no, I can't insure them, I'm not going to have that dog. So these dogs perhaps are doomed to be in kennels forever.
Look, it's first thing is fantastic name. Love it. I think it's a great name. So I think it's definitely a challenge for the insurance industry. And what I would say is good insurance companies will look at the risk, and in certain circumstances will try and place an exclusion on the policy that only relates to the condition that the pet has, so that actually the pet can still get insurance, but not for that pre-existing condition. Now, if you're going for a regime of looking after the pet the way you have, it is likely that you will get some insurance. There are a couple of insurers out there that are starting to offer pre-existing, and it's one of the things I'm very interested in. I think pre-existing cover, I would like to think that the insurance industry could get to a position where we're saying to you, right, if you continue with the regime that you have described, so like a what I would call good health plan, and you stick to that religiously, then what we will do is start to offer some insurance benefit for you, and that will grow as the animal goes through the first year, second year, third year. So you start to get more benefit as the animal is clear of the condition. There's got to be ways to tackle it. And I can honestly say to you that the industry is continuously looking at how do they do it. That, you know, we need a bit more innovation in that space. And but you need a good company that will look at the risk that's in front of them and understand how they can keep that any restrictions to the policy at its lowest possible level. That's the first thing you need to look for. So as an example, some companies would basically not cover both hips because they know you've got a problem with one hip, is going to manifest itself in the other hip. So we're going to exclude cover for both hips. Other companies like my own would look at that and say, what's the likelihood? And if the likelihood is minor, i.e. the dog's the pet is a reasonably good breed, it's lightweight, the owner is going to put it on the right regime and everything else, we would probably try and restrict the exclusion to a lower level. So look for the right company. Don't be frightened to ask around. And don't assume that they will exclude completely, because that's not necessarily completely true. I'm not saying companies don't, because they do, but you need to explore. And don't be frightened to ask questions. Ask all the questions you can do whilst you're getting the quote. And don't assume that you're going to get all the information online, because that's the other mistake that some people make. They assume that everything is there. Unless you read the policy wording from top to toe and understand it, you're not necessarily going to get the answers you want. So get on the phone, ask the questions, and keep asking until such time as you're comfortable that you've been given all the information.
Really good advice. No, that really is good advice, you know, because it's a worry. But at the end of the day, you know, I think people have to understand as well that owning a dog is going to cost you money. You know, I mean, I didn't mind paying out for it. Well, that's another good question actually for you, Andy. Previously, I mean, historically, I don't know with Mr. Binks because I can't insure him, but he has needed, as said, a dental, which I was happy to pay for. But historically, insurance firms are tricky about teeth.
Yes, so there are a number of exclusions around teeth that you need to take care and check. So my company is basically saying, as long as you have an annual checkup and you do the things that you're supposed to do to keep your teeth in good order, clean them and do the various things that you should be doing, then we will cover most teeth. Most of the teeth issues. So most insurance companies will do that, but most individuals, and you know, I'm saying this in general, won't necessarily think that their pet needs to have their teeth annually checked. Well, what I can say to you is if you do that, you will pick up any issues early and you will get the treatment early, which means it's a lower cost as a starting point. And the reality of it is the pet will have a more healthy life because they're not necessarily going to tell you they've got a problem with their back right tooth.
No, it's true. But the interesting thing is, Andy, you know, vets love to sell you a dental.
Yep.
They love it.
Yep. Yeah. So I would say to you, yeah, of course they do. They'll sell you the added benefits of looking after your animal's teeth, but the reality of it is most owners, if they start, I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I've got 2 Yorkshire Terriers.
You see, small breeds. Now, it's interesting because they obviously suffer from teeth. But it's interesting. My Bull Terrier Prudence, I mean, the one that she definitely still has got is a cracking set of gnashers. And so did my first Bull Terrier, Molly. In fact, gosh, it was funny. On the radio show, I still do. And Molly was 8 at the time. And we had a vet in the studio. And in fairness, he was like so gobsmacked when he met Molly and Joanne Good's first bulldog, Matilda. because they were slim. And a vet in practice, I think, tends to see so many porky pups that he couldn't believe seeing slim dogs, which shocked me actually in a way. I thought, gosh, really, is it that bad? And then I said, oh, have a look at Molly's teeth, because I was really proud of them. I actually never brushed them, but it's got to do, I think, by the size of the mouth. The more oxygen that comes into a dog's mouth, the more healthy the gums are going to be, you know. So the bigger the mouth, so a bull terrier also has got a huge mouth, so lots of air goes in. Anyway, he guessed Molly's age looking at her teeth.
Yeah.
2 years old, and she was 8, so that was really good. But my point was with this, I've digressed a bit here, it is about really education, isn't it? And I think, do you think vets could do more by helping teach an owner how to brush their dog's teeth, for example?
Absolutely you can get on look, I think there's an element of do-it-yourself teaching that you can do as an owner. So you can get, there's some great YouTubes you can look at where vets have actually placed them on YouTube. That's the first thing I would say. Secondly, vets, if you're joining, there's lots of puppy and kitten clubs that you can join when your fur babies are young, and they will teach you how to do the right things. Be very, very careful about being sold miracle cures. Is my advice. If you can follow the normal routine and get the puppy or kitten used to it early, actually they're usually quite fine. And the other thing is, like you said, get them outside and walking and exercising, because the mouth opens more and so on and so forth. So it's a question of, vets can definitely help, but what I would also say to owners is you need to ask, because you don't need to see the vet to get the information. A receptionist will normally tell you it. A vet nurse will normally tell you and show you. So don't be frightened to ask, and use the time wisely. So it's an area that is often excluded in policies. It's an area that you can get inclusion if you just do the right things, and actually it can be quite expensive if you get a problem. And it's an area that most people get caught out with. So ask away, and obesity I will come back to.
No, it's good. Can I just ask a sort of a bit of a nitty-gritty question, Andy? I'm loving talking. I've never really spoken so in depth with an insurance provider before, so I'm feeling quite privileged, Andy, to be honest. But the sort of the big question is this: does postcode matter?
It does. It does.
Does it really?
Yeah, it does. Okay, it does. So I can say to you, in Australia, I'm going to give you an Australian example, and I'll come back to the UK. In Australia, the difference between the states is around about a 15% variation in vets fees. In the UK, between, let's use London, the South East, Scotland and Wales, there's a variation of between 35 and 70%. And it's purely down to a few reasons. Some of them are fairly logical, which is, if you set up a practice in London, the location and the cost of running that practice ordinarily is going to be higher than any other space in the UK. It's the same for Scotland and Wales. Scotland's obviously cheaper. Wales is cheaper again. And that has an influence on what the vet charges. So they've got to pay for their premise and everything else inside it. How up to date that practice is with their technology also has an influence on and an impact on the cost that they will charge. So if they've got the latest scanner in their surgery, then you will pay a proportion towards the cost of that item. So where they are in terms, and then obviously the last part of the jigsaw, and it's the bit that's really important, is what are the skills of the vets that they have working for them. The more experienced vets tend to charge slightly higher than the new people coming into the industry. So you've got a myriad of costs coming through. So where you are in the country and your closest vets and how they work impacts the overall cost of your insurance policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep, 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 yep. Well, it makes sense. I mean, vets, at the end of the day,
Yep.
Andy, isn't it? They are businesses, and they need dogs to make money, don't they, really? So I get that. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Anna.
Hey, I was thinking after we record this Zoom, shall we run to the park and with Prudence, Billy, and Mr. Binks?
I'd love to, but as you can hear, Billy is excited because his delivery is turning up any minute now.
Oh, what delivery is that?
Paleo Ridge.
No way, you've done it.
I have. After you gave us a sample of yours, Billy absolutely loves it. And come here, Billy, come here. So you can see how his coat is all nice and shinier now, and see in his belly.
Oh,
Remember, I
look.
was telling you how it was all bald there, and now it's all growing back.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it would help with that because it boosts the immune system. And of course,
Yeah,
the skin is an organ like any other organ in the body. It's the
exactly.
biggest organ. So he looks very white and shiny.
He's very white and shiny, and all that talk of rock hard poo that you were always mentioning, it's actually true. So it's not quite the mess that would normally have to clean up in the heath anymore. It's actually quite easy now, isn't it, Bill? Isn't it?
Oh, good for you, Billy. Yeah, and anyway, I always think Raw is the best. And for me, Paleo Ridge is the best of the best. So if you want to find more, everybody, check out the show notes. From your perspective with Pet Cover, what are your plans really to promote, wellness really for pets so that ultimately there'll be less underwriting for you to do, although I'm sure you're very happy to underwrite. But I guess ultimately the aim is to be underwriting less because that should then be a benchmark that pets are getting healthier.
Absolutely spot on. One of the raison d'etres of our company is about well-being. There are ordinarily your vet will offer you a some kind of scheme which is about wellness, where you get your worming tablets, your flea treatments, and so on and so forth. If that's affordable and sensible, you should join it. But what Pet Cover is about is for those things that you don't consider are going to happen to your pet, the unforeseen, the things that are going to have that are likely to happen, but you don't know what it's going to be. Now, the key for us is promotion of well-being. I'll give you an example. It's where we're working with another company to promote something that's in the right space. So, as an example, we have linked in with a company called Horselicks. Horselicks is a provider of salt blocks for horses.
Oh, yes.
Now, one of the biggest issues for horses in terms of treatment is colic. Now, it gets colic, which is a twisted stomach, basically. And if it drinks frequently, it actually is less likely to get colic. So what we've done is we've linked with this company that believes these salt blocks will help the animal go to water, which ultimately will help with colic. And we're doing an experiment with 250 to 300 horse owners to see, actually have some of these for free. And let's see if your frequency of colic is less. Because if we can get that colic cost down, ultimately the premiums will come down. So again, it's a way of promoting healthy well-being for your pet. Now, talking about dogs,
Yes.
we've linked with Trundle, which is a pet walking organization, where if you link to their site, they will give you various places to go and walk your pet, interesting sites and so on and so forth. And you can they'll offer you things within the product. But what we've said is, look, if people are linking to this with their pets, then we're really interested in that, because part of well-being is making sure you exercise your pet at the right kind of level. So again, it's a way of helping people do the right things. Now, wellness itself, I've looked at wellness as a product. It's actually out there as a product, but it pays for the maintenance of things. It doesn't necessarily cover everything.
No, I know, and it's a fine line, isn't it, with health? It's something I think people are quite tuned to at the moment, Andy. It's a combination of your genetics, whether
Yep.
you're a human or a horse or, a newt or a dog, So it's your genetics, and it's environmental stressors, of which, of course, lack of exercise is one. Over exercise, that can also cause vet
Absolutely.
trips,
Absolutely.
torn muscles and the like. And stress, really, the way we live with dogs. And you pointed out that is the main difference between Australia and the UK.
Yep.
And I guess, well, I'm sure there are high rises in sort of places like Sydney in Australia.
There
Surely
are.
it's,
There are.
yeah. But I mean, it is that space issue, I suppose. But I'm loving this partnership with different organisations to help people. I think that's really good, Andy.
Yeah, and we will. One of the things that I mean, I spoke with one of my development managers this morning, and we're linking with a nutritionist company that actually visit people in their home with their pets. And the reason we're linking with them is because they're influencing the eating habits and what pets eat. And again, it's another way of filtering out, does that have influence, and does it actually have an impact on those animals? And again, we'll be able to monitor those pets and see how they compare against our control group. So,
But what sort of food will they be eating, Andy,
well,
to do
this
that? I mean, you see, it's such a, mixed up world, the world of nutrition, where certainly where dogs and cats are concerned, in my view, because obviously I am a canine nutritionist and nutritionist of cats. So, but where I come from, there is only one way really to feed pets, which is with whole food that's fresh and functional. It can be cooked, but ideally I prefer to feed raw. So my cat eats raw lamb's hearts every day. Certainly it's the way I've been feeding my dogs for, now over 20 years. And prior to that, though, because I grew up with dogs, it was my dad worked for the RSPCA. He was mad about dogs all his life. So, and he was quite old. So, when he was born in 1920, there wasn't any kibble.
Yeah, yeah.
So our dogs at home always ate meat, and had bones and bits of vegetables and leftovers and what have you. So I kind of just transferred all of that. And when, Molly went for my first bull terrier, went for her checkup when I got her back from the breeder and everything. She was microchipped, and I was like, "Oh, really? Do we really need one of those things in your dog now?" But you do, so that's fine, and it is law, so fine. But anyway, and I was given a bag of kibble, and I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. It was balanced, complete, and brilliant food, and cleans their teeth, and all the rest of it. And I'm
Mm.
like, right. And I thought about it till we sort of almost got home. And I was passing a bin, actually. I thought, you know what, I don't really want this. And I binned it. And then we were lucky we had a butcher's really near. It was lovely, actually. Molly grew up on Lamb's Conduit Street. Brilliant. Bloomsbury. She was raised in Bloomsbury. I was very lucky. And it was great. And I got meat from the butcher, and it was very local. So it was all, super convenient for me. But you hear what I'm saying. So it really
Yeah.
depends who is telling you what to feed your dog. I mean, vets will tell you to feed two main brands dry kibble, and they maintain that is the best way. So if vets are writing on the dog's records what they're eating, I mean, my local vet, I've got several vets that I dip into as and when I need, right? And my local one here, hates me, I'll be honest, because I feed my dogs raw. They say, well, we don't agree with that. And I said, well, it's all right though, isn't it? He's not your
Yeah.
dog, and I am a bit cheeky, but I mean, that really is the point, isn't it? I mean,
Look, yeah, it's your pet, and the way I look at it is fresh. I mean, you probably come across the term fresh is best. If you can afford it and you're in that space, then I would say yes. These are all pet nutritionists. They won't recommend any particular product. They come and see you. You pay for their visit. They sit with you. They talk about what you're doing with the pet, and they work out a regime of how you should look after it if you need that assistance. Predominantly younger pets, so I'm very interested in younger pets, so I can monitor what goes on. And then what I would say to you, and it's not counter to your position, but it is a fact, which is Unfortunately, in this day and age, you've got people's convenience and lifestyles that are fundamentally different, and
Mm.
it's trying to work out what the best outcome for that pet is with that owner's lifestyle. And sometimes, I'm going to be really honest, sometimes they're incompatible, those two things, because the owner hasn't actually worked out what it is to look after the pet in the first place and has actually taken the wrong pet on. And that's why a lot of them end up in the charity shelter locations because owners aren't thinking that through. And I mean that in the most positive way that I can get it across.
No, I see it every day, Andy, and it's. I think the pandemic actually has changed the face of dog ownership so much that it's really blown it out of the water. You know, our expectations for dogs, the fact that we use third parties to groom your dogs. I mean, in the olden days, were no groomers, you know. You bathed your dog, you clipped
Yep.
its nails, you
Yep.
cleaned its eyes, you cleaned its ears. But some people can't actually even do that. So, you know, I don't want to sound negative or anything, but the thing is, you've one journey with your dog, isn't
Yep.
it, Andy?
Yep.
And in a way, to partner with someone like yourselves to
Yep.
go through that journey, but be on the same page.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. So I look, I jumped in, but what I wanted to say to you is look, I've got a sister site that will be launching very soon, which I'm not going to say out loud because it hasn't launched yet. On that site, you will have specialists in your area that can help you. So you'll have dog groomers, dog walkers, dog trainers, all the things where we will have people on that site that have been accredited and trained, and we can confirm that. And you'll be able to use those sites to actually help you if you need the help, because that's the other thing. Some people don't know how to; they need to be shown how to. And you've got to provide as much support as you can. I wouldn't leave my. I've got Yogi Bear, who's my youngest dog. He's 3, and I've got my oldest dog, Lucky, who's 17, as I said earlier. I wouldn't leave Lucky with anybody else.
No.
He's 17 years old, and he just needs much more care than I would suggest most people would give him. Whereas Yogi Bear he's an interactive. He wants to play. There's no aggression with him. He's a beautiful animal, lovely, caring thing, and he mixes well. And I would be quite happy to take him on walks with other animals, and so on and so forth. So in my mind, it's what support do you need to make that pet life as full and rich as it can possibly be. Pet insurance is one aspect. All the other mechanisms for helping you are there. You just need to find the right companies to take you on that journey if you can't do it yourself. If you can do it yourself and you're more than competent and very happy with that, then that's obviously the best course of action.
Yeah, well, it's down to knowledge and experience, but
Exactly.
certainly pet cover sounds great. This add-on sounds very interesting indeed, Andy, and I'd love it if you'd come back to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
sounds great. Thank you for today. I hope it's clarified quite a few things for various pet parents, some that may have not insured yet or might be
Yep.
thinking of switching, or and I guess is that fairly easy for you to take on if somebody rings you
Yep.
up and says, well, I'm with someone else, but I want to be with you? Is that a straightforward
Yeah,
switch?
we make it as streamlined as possible for you to transfer. If you've got your renewal documents that you've had and nothing's changed, you can forward that on to us, and we will make it easy for you. So it's a simple process. Feel free to. I will come on board again if you want me to later on in the year, perhaps in the last quarter, to talk about the other company if you want me to. And I'm more than happy if it works for you to answer questions that people may have on just general insurance in terms of pet. I'm more than happy to help you in that space if you need any, if it helps people at all.
No, that's very kind of you. Actually, Andy, one thing that has cropped up in the news just this week, right? Because, England's been 40 degrees, or it has been in London. It's been really, really hot. And what's happened is adders, our only poisonous snake in this country at the moment, has gone mad. They love it. And they've grown to ridiculous sizes, apparently, this summer. And there was a case that hit the press of a Cocker Spaniel that was bitten by a really massive adder. And obviously, when your dog's bitten by an adder, you're not near to a vet. You're in the middle of a forest or something. So anyway, they got the dog to their local vet, who, guess what, didn't have any anti-venom antidote. So the dog was going down, and they had to travel miles to get to the antidote. Anyway, long story short, the dog is all right. It cost them nearly £2,500. Now, this wasn't in London, but I've heard that several vets don't stock the antidote for adders, for example. Now, in that situation where arguably the vet was in the wrong for not having the antidote to help you then and there with your dog, where does that all sit with insurance, Because I've known 3 people now that have had an adder bite in the UK, and their local vet has been unable, simply didn't have it, to do anything. And then there's been a mad panic to go quite far before the dog dies, basically.
Really, it's a really interesting point. So I believe there is an association that's out there. Forgive me, I can't remember it off the top of my head. What I will do is I will ask our vets, and actually I will put it on our website.
No, brilliant. I just think, honestly, it was heart-wrenching case study this. So this Cocker Spaniel, it was only one, and he nearly did die, but the bill, was so much.
We would pay. There wouldn't be an issue with the bill itself. That would be covered. I think the skill for me is right. If I've got that circumstance, and I know I can go onto a site that tells me the latest stockist who's got it, at least I'm not wasting my time, the precious time I do have. So I'll quite happily get our people to start looking at that and ringing vets and finding out who's got stock, and actually on our website.
Well, you see, it's great. It's great to kind of put a voice and a face to a name of a brand like this. So thank you again, Andy, for joining us today. And I really do hope we can stay in touch and sort of report on the new things that Pet Cover is doing.
I really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to people. And as I say, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, or come through you. As I say, I will do this adder snake stuff. I will sort that out.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Andy.
Appreciate it. Care yourself.
That's our show, Mr. Binks. What did you think? Yes, I agree. It was very interesting talking to Andy. And Pet Cover sounds like they've got the right perspective on managing pets' healthcare. And you're right, it is time for Woof of the Week. Whether to insure or not to insure, always opt for a pet-specific insurance firm, and one where you can discuss your individual pet's needs. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, we're on all the platforms. Thanks again, of course, to Andy Pierce for joining us today, and all the links are in our show notes. A big thanks to Mike Hansen for all the music and production as ever. Find out more about him at Pod People UK. And for me, I'm just at Anna Webb Dogs. What's that, Mr. Binks? Yes, we will be back in your feed next Sunday with part 2 of our insurance special. So why don't you subscribe now? And that way you'll never miss that or any other show. Bye for now.